What's up, HBCU Con? This is Troy Jeffrey Allen here for HBCU Con, of course. And welcome to what I hope will be one of many really interesting interviews with people within the creative world who have a history with HBCUs. Let me do a quick introduction of our guest tonight. Uh, this man has 3 decades of credits. Boondocks, Wu-Tang and American Saga, American Gods, Everybody Hates Chris, My Wife and Kids, of course, the award-winning, critically acclaimed Winning Time on HBO. He's also done comics. He's done James Bond, which actually I recently found out about. Quinn Credible, The Mandalorian, Falcon, Marvel's Falcon, Philadelphia. We'll be here all day if we list all his credits. He's the hardest working man in show business. Let me introduce you to Mr. Rodney Barnes. How's it going, Rodney?
What's happening, man? I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing good. First of all, thanks for hanging with us. I appreciate it. I know you clearly are a busy man. You
Thanks for
have
having me. Appreciate it.
you have an entire show, right, to deal with. You got
Mhm.
well, actually four comics because we're going to talk about Blacula right now. That's currently out
Mhm.
right now. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on and joining us here at HBC UConn. Really appreciate it.
Very welcome. Very welcome.
So Blacula just hit stores. It just hit comic book stores and bookstores and online. So let's talk a little bit about Blacula first. I'm assuming that this character has a special connection to you for you to bring him back in general. So can you take us back to your personal history with the character?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I loved horror films, mostly the Universal films, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, those late night creature feature movies I saw as a kid. And the Hammer films were Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, mostly Dracula films.
Mhm,
Um, Never saw black people in them. I always
mhm,
wondered why, even as a kid. Like I never see me, and no one ever explained it to me. I don't know if I asked, but I just never saw us.
mhm,
And so I went through this period where my mother was a single parent. Parents broke up when I was like 2 years old, and my mother decided at some point, really early on, this boy needs a father.
mhm,
So when it came to as dates, suitors came by wanting to
mhm.
take her out, I had to become part of the date. So I got to, in some cases, pick the date. And I
Okay.
remember a trailer coming on. It wasn't a trailer like what we have today. It was like a little spot, late night spot. And
Mhm,
usually they came on after Soul Train or something like that, but for Blacula. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's Black Vampire and Blacula. You can't get past, if it's Black Vampire and his name is Blacula, I got to see
mhm,
this thing. So next time the opportunity came, told my mother, hey, I'm going on a date with you. Where would you like to go? I said, I want to see that movie.
mhm,
So this brother found the movie. It was in Baltimore, Hippodrome Theater. And it was the first time I had gone to a theater that was like all black people.
mhm.
And I'm like 7 years old. And it was an interactive experience where this was like the people talk to the screen. And
Yep.
it was uh it was fun. It was everything that I wanted it to be, and it just stuck in my head.
Mhm,
But as I got older and I revisited the movie, I saw some of the problematic stuff that was in it,
mhm, mhm,
um, and in black exploitation across the just across the board. But I've
mhm,
always been sort of empathetic to black exploitation because it was a step in a direction to get us closer to where we are today, and
mhm,
hopefully where we'll be tomorrow.
mhm,
But I always said if I ever had an opportunity to write comics and I got a crack at doing Blacula again, I would try to sort of extricate some of the problematic aspects and
mhm,
highlight some of the things that I thought really worked in the movies to this day. And bring Prince Waldy, aka Blacula, to a place of
mhm,
prominence along the lines of what I felt with the Universal monsters. Like he would be elegant, and William Marshall, who played the character of Blacula, was an elegant Shakespearean actor. He played
mhm,
Othello, and I just wanted to, in his honor, sort of put him in that place like a Bela Lugosi of what he did for
mhm,
Dracula.
mhm.
So that sort of led me and was always the motivation. If I ever got this shot, I would do it. And here we go.
All right. Have you ever seen Scream Blacula Scream? Have you watched the sequel?
I have seen Scream Blacula Scream.
Okay. Can we get a quick review of it real quick?
Not my favorite. Not my favorite. I thought the storyline was. I always felt like I liked the casting because I like Pam Grier and I like Richard Lawson. And I like the voodoo
Hmm.
elements. I like the idea
Hmm.
of it more
Yeah.
than the actual film itself because it felt like it was trying to do so many different things that I didn't know exactly what it was completely trying to do. I don't hate it by any
Hmm. Hmm.
stretch of the imagination. I'd probably give it 2.5 stars if we were going out of
Hmm.
four, but not as much as I dig Blacula because I felt like Blacula, for what it was, had a cleaner narrative um, in comparison of the two. But it felt like, all right, we got Pam Grier, all right,
Hmm.
got
Hmm.
this idea of voodoo, you know, let's put all of these pieces in here together and see what we can do.
See what we can do, right? No, absolutely. All right, so that catches us up to speed, right? To Blackula, the return of the king, right? And you kind of touched on this a little bit. I wanted you to elaborate. Is this a modern interpretation, or is this the third chapter?
No, it's a modern interpretation. I sort of behave like the Scream Blackula Scream doesn't exist, and I sort of
Mm,
pick it up from the first one. More of the themes of the first one exist within this than the second one. Um, but a modern, it's almost when you look at the '70s and blaxploitation, there's this subversive feel that I think is under those films. You can feel the civil rights movement, some of the Pan African movement. You
mm,
see within the music, oftentimes within the soundtracks and people who did it, um, the dress, the fashion, the afros, all of that was speaking to a very progressive time
mm,
for the culture.
mm,
And fast forward that to today, and I think there is sort of that subversive feeling happening right now in the country, certainly within the
mm. Yeah,
polarization of the
absolutely.
narrative. And I look at those themes, and I always felt like the themes of the '70s um, sort of fit the idea of what's happening in the world today. It might not be as cohesive because we have so many different voices doing so many
Yeah.
different things, and we didn't have as many outlets back then.
Mm.
But certainly the social and political issues of then apply to now to me. So thus that idea as well.
All right, perfect. Why resurrect Blackula now? I mean, you kind of touched on that a little bit, but like, is there like a particular reason why why 2023 is the time for this book to come out right now?
Um, Again, when I think about film and television and graphic novels, and
Hmm.
over the course of since I've been reading them, the
Hmm.
'70s or so, and I'll say a little bit of a historian. I go back and I buy a lot of back issues and things, and I read things.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, by me, I'm saying African American writers and creatives weren't at the forefront. We weren't writing and creating a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
Now we are, but there was a period where you could see black faces, but not necessarily an honest portrayal of that thought that goes
Hmm.
into it in a certain pureness in culture. And
Hmm.
I just wanted to sort of inject within that resurrection some degree of honesty as to how he would feel. It's something you ever watch gang movies of I
Yeah.
don't know if you go back and watch movies from the '70s, but
Hmm.
in the
Absolutely.
'70s, gang movies, gangsters were always I'm not talking about gangsters with the guns,
Tommy
but in
guns.
black gangs. Yeah, not
Right.
them. I'm
Hmm.
talking about in
Hmm.
black gangs like Death Wish,
Yeah.
those types of movies where Charles Bronson would face like a group of black men and they were all
Hmm.
like the same thugs and they were always bad and he
Right.
would come after them. And that was an idea. There's
Hmm.
someone thought that these would be perfect bad guys.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
always looked at it and I'm like, okay. I remember in one of the Dirty Harry movies, he was in San Francisco and he was sort of fighting with the Black Panthers. And they
Yeah.
always
Hmm.
portrayed
Hmm.
them as sort of these thugs and that type of thing.
Right.
I'm
Yep.
coming from a different sensibility. That's not what they are at all.
Right.
So the opportunity to revisit some of these ideas and themes and rewrite them and work them in a way that's more honest to what my understanding is of
Hmm.
how I see these people and be a little bit more empathetic with their stories as well. Sort of walk along the whole idea of genre, because I think the power of genre is to be able to take really complex layered themes and put them into a fun vehicle. It's like
Mhm.
cherry flavoring medicine. You think
Oh, yeah.
about
Hmm.
George Romero and Night of the Living Dead dealing with racism and
Absolutely.
Vietnam,
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead dealing with capitalism.
Hmm.
And you can go down the list in the 70s and guys like Wes Craven and so many others that
Hmm.
use horror to have certain types of messaging. Um, I think it can be a really useful tool. And even today, Jordan Peele, integrates a lot of
Yeah.
different
Oh,
thoughts and
yeah.
ideas and themes into his movies and television shows. And so I wanted to do the same thing with something that meant something to me,
Hmm.
and always sort of stuck in my craw a little bit.
No, absolutely. No, I definitely. It's funny you mentioned the Black Panther thing because I noticed it's only recently, like it seems like the mainstream has caught
Yeah,
on to. There's a different perspective on the Black Panthers than the one that we were fed.
yeah.
I know exactly what Dirty Harry movie you're talking about, and like, yeah, that always went against my perspective of it as well. So I completely agree.
Hey
Actually, let me.
man, I got to know,
Right,
man.
you're right,
You
right,
know, always,
right.
yeah,
They're kind of always like a cross between the Warriors and a pimp,
yeah.
and
Always
they were
talk
always
like,
jive talking, and
yeah.
yeah,
Look, sucker, we don't want you
right,
here. Try to
right,
connect with it. And
exactly.
that's not who those brothers were. But
No,
yeah,
not at all.
yeah.
Actually, want to ask you, how did you get into comics? Where did that start? Like as a fan?
Well, as a fan, I've always loved comic books. My mother
Mm,
was a school teacher, and she would do her lesson plans, is way before computers, of course, at the
mhm,
public library, and she would take me, and they would have this section where the kids' books were,
mhm,
and she set me in it, and under the kid, like the Curious George and Dr. Seuss and all of those books, was a box. And I knew
mhm,
where that box was, and I was drawn to it. And you would have Batman, all the comic books, like probably $1 million worth of comic books right now, if I could go back
mhm,
and pull them out now. And it was something about the way, I don't know if I could read because I was like 4 or 5 years old, but it was
mhm,
something about the stories that I understood. It was something about superheroes in general that drew me into that idea of good versus evil.
mhm,
Very basic idea of storytelling, that it felt like there were stakes in those stories that were bigger than the stakes that were in the kid books.
yeah,
And even though my grandfather used to call them funny books, and
right, same.
they were disposable, it was
Uh-huh.
disposable reading, entertainment. But it was something at the core of them that touched me. And the weird thing with comic books was, as I got older, comic books evolved,
Mhm,
and it went from that Pow Bam, those books, to Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore, where
yeah,
you're damn near literature, and the art
mhm,
became much more sophisticated over time,
mhm,
and the themes dealing with death and dealing with all types of time and space and the cosmos,
mhm,
and in a way that fascinated me, and
yeah,
I just got hooked. And so I wanted to be a comics writer, but I just did not know how to break through in that. So
mhm,
I was a fan for years, buying them off the spinner rack for years. And then ultimately, when comic shops became a thing, every Wednesday going to comic shops. And
mhm,
when I worked on the TV show Runaways for Marvel, a few years ago, I guess we were on
mhm,
Hulu,
mhm,
I made it clear to the folks at Marvel TV that if they could reach out to Marvel Publishing, say, hey, we got a guy, if you like what I do, I would love to take a crack at writing a comic book. And I figured it would be a
mhm,
one-off thing, and I would just get it out of my system and I would do it. And it was harder than I thought it would be,
mhm,
much harder. That relationship between words and images is way
mhm,
different than writing for moving objects. Um,
mhm, mhm,
and actors who say words. And I had to learn
mhm,
that. It took a while for me to find my voice in comics, but that was the beginning. And then I think it was Incredible after that, and then Lando Double or Nothing, the Star Wars book, and
mhm,
a couple of others. And then finally, Philadelphia sort of started was at a place where I think I became comfortable with finding my voice in comics.
Okay, yeah. Actually, no, I love Philadelphia and Nita Hawes, which we'll talk a little bit about actually, because so Philadelphia is definitely starts off with vampires. Nita Hawes goes in a bunch of different directions, right? But you've done all this comedy and drama, but it seems like horror is really your thing. Like, am I wrong to say that, or is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I love horror, and horror
Hmm.
was at my heart. But if you think about it, just from a place of trying to figure out a sophisticated way of saying finding a job. When I first got to
Right.
Hollywood, I
Uh,
tried to sell scripts, I tried to sell things, and there was no one was picking up. No one was buying my horror scripts.
mm,
So I started. That was the bridge. Like, oh, I have these stories. Like Philadelphia's been in my head for 20 years. It's not a
mm,
new thing.
mhm,
Nita Hawes has been around. They've all been there. It's just a matter of trying to find somebody who want to put it on a TV or a movie screen. And
mhm,
so I don't really look at it as either comedy or drama because I think elements of both exist in everything that I do. You'll find a joke or two in Philadelphia.
mhm.
Not so much Nita. Nita's a little sadder.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I get one off. But
Right. Right.
for the most part, hers is more of a difficult journey. But I really try to look at everything as story and as
Mhm,
what characters want. If they want something that's funny, if they're funny people and that's the way that they go about um, telling their story, I tell it in a funny way or
mhm.
dramatic way or horrifying way. So I don't really differentiate one from the other. Um, and so, yeah.
Okay. No, I get that. I totally understand what you mean when you say that. Actually, I want to point out you're actively writing Mandalorian for Marvel right now, right?
I am. I'm almost finished season 2 now.
Okay, nice, nice. So yeah, if you guys are a Star Wars fan, he's done Lando and he's done Mandalorian. So definitely
Mhm.
check that out at your local comic shop.
And I've done
Um,
IG-88 for War of the Bounty Hunters.
oh, you
So,
did?
yeah.
Okay, nice, nice, nice. That's a deep cut right there, kind of.
Yeah, man.
uh,
Yeah.
so the trade for Blacula is currently out, but then you have Monarch from Image, which is actually dropping this month as well. What can you tell us about Monarch without spoiling it?
Right here,
There
the
you go.
clean cover
Yeah.
variant.
Hmm.
Monarch is about a group of kids who find themselves at a middle school in Compton on an average day where an alien attack takes place to basically aliens come and take over the world. And the
As it
kids have to
happens, yeah.
figure out a way to survive.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the kids is sort of the catalyst, and we see the world through his eyes, and we see sort of this dilemma through his eyes. But I really try to create a nuanced story of what it means to be a kid today, what it means to deal with the pressure and the pressure that kids are placed upon. I don't think kids have the same world, didn't grow up in the same world that I grew up in, where there
Hmm.
was as much play.
Yeah,
There
that's
was
fair.
as much sitting in a corner reading a book.
Hmm.
That there's a lot more stuff going on in their lives. And
Hmm.
in a way that makes you an adult a lot sooner than maybe is good,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it also creates this dynamic where maybe you can figure out things a lot quicker than I was able to figure out things. I don't
Hmm.
know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But a lot of questions are asked in regards to that. What's it like being a kid today, and what's it like being a kid when aliens are cutting your teachers in half?
That's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does that mean that like technology kind of factors into it? I imagine because I'm sure like technology is a big part of kids' life now.
Yeah, I
So
mean, cell phones and all of that kind of stuff,
yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
But, this is more of still intrinsic emotional. If there's a thing that kind of
Hmm.
goes with my writing, certainly for comics, I try when everything else is emotion. I'm
Hmm.
always looking to feel. I went through a long period of when I would write, really it was just one dimensional. I was trying to either make you laugh or whatever the mission or the goal was at hand. And I think once I started to write to a place of accomplishing more than that. I can make you laugh and I can make you feel something at the same time. I think I became a better writer, and it became a better experience for me, a more cathartic experience for me.
Hmm.
And certainly for Monarch, I'm working in that vein of trying to, a lot of times when it comes to African American fare, there's this thing that's placed upon the writer of you have to talk about society and
Yeah.
what it means to be black in every story that you tell. And what I focus on as much as what it means for that human being to be who they are in the world that they are and what they're dealing with as an individual.
Hmm.
And if how you process that through the lens of a black experience is sort of the emphasis that I try to hone in on, if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete and total sense. I'd imagine like it's kind of easy, especially like you've gone the distance in terms of what you can do in the film and television world. I'm sure you've had to deal with like, no, we think that you should write the black experience like this, and
Mhm.
it's really great to see you in
That's every
particular.
job I ever had. That's every
Yeah.
single job I ever had.
I believe it. I completely and totally believe that. Um, Jumping back to Monarch a little bit, is this tying into Philadelphia or Nita Hawes, or is this definitely
No,
completely separate?
it's his own
Okay.
thing. Um,
Uh-huh.
I got into this place for a while because there's Philadelphia, there's Nita Hawes, there's 20 Degrees Past Rigor, there's Johnny Gatlin. Both of those are
Mm-hmm.
on my Substack. Um, there's one more out there I can't remember right
Is
now,
is
but
Crownsville part of that?
no, Crownsville is on the outside of that as well.
Okay.
That
Uh,
is based on a real place from one of the first black mental asylums in America.
mm,
Where actually, if it's a black mental asylum, they ain't helping nobody, they ain't treating nobody.
right. Right.
They're testing on people. It's basically a place where Tuskegee experiment can happen 20 times over every day.
Yeah.
And so most ghost stories or stories that, where spirits linger have to do with trauma. And
Hmm.
so I felt like it would be perfect fodder for a haunted hospital story. But again, it's another way of, no pun intended, digging up history and being able to place some truth within so that you don't feel like you're just watching a documentary, but you're also hopefully empathizing with the experience that people went through and understanding um, that suffering and that journey.
Absolutely. That actually sounds really fascinating.
It's
Is
almost
this is
done.
Monarch
One
on,
more story, one more chapter needs to be done, but yeah.
and this is on your Substack?
No, that'll be through Zombie Love. That'll be like Blacula, and then next is Florence and Normandy, another alien-esque story that takes place on the corner of Florence and Normandy, made famous by the Rodney King riots.
Mm,
That story is with me and Exhibit, the actor, rapper Exhibit.
okay.
And
Uh-huh.
then Crownsville comes after that, and then some other books will come after
Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Is Monarch an ongoing series?
that. It's 6 issues right now.
6 issues. Okay.
Uh,
Gotcha.
yeah, 6 issues.
All right, cool. All right, so this is the thing I like to do sometimes when I have a chance to talk to somebody who has a storied career, right? It's a little Wikipedia true or false, right? So
Okay.
I just want to know if these things are true, and if you have any stories that support this, please feel free to share them. Uh, According to Wikipedia, you worked on Blade and Rush Hour. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, in what capacity?
Uh, and Blade was my first job in LA. I was
Okay.
living in my car and I
Oh,
got a
okay.
job as a production assistant. And it was my first like from the beginning to the end
Hmm.
um, gig in LA. And I was PA. I was there every day.
Hmm. All right, nice, nice, nice. And Rush Hour was not too shortly after that, I'm assuming.
Rush Hour, I started off as assistant location manager because
Hmm.
we were shooting a lot in downtown LA, and that's never fun. And see, I'm the size of a security guard, so a lot of people always look at me as security because I'm big. Anytime I hang out with
uh,
somebody who people recognize, they think I'm security for that person.
Figure security.
So yeah, I started off as that, but I ended up as Chris Tucker's personal assistant of
Okay.
sorts because a homeless person tried to get in his trailer. And then I
Uh,
was assigned to sit in front of his trailer, and we hit it off. And then the next was next. So yeah.
that's awesome. I can also big relate to people thinking of security guard because I'm a big guy too.
So there you go. It's
Yeah,
always
you
sure.
can never stand in front of a door for too long because people will assume.
Oh no, they'll
Um,
start asking questions and all of that.
like, is there a cover charge to walk in? All sorts of
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh
So,
yeah, 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 yeah.
all right. So here's another one. You left your hometown of Annapolis. We're actually situated here in Maryland. This is where HBCU Con originated from. To pursue a career in screenwriting and production after meeting and working with Damon Wayans. Is that true?
Yeah, on the movie Major Pain.
Okay.
I was a set PA, and after about a week on set, Damon called me in his trailer. I thought I had done something wrong, and he said, "Say, man, so what do you want to do with your career? It can't be just walking around with that walkie-talkie in your hand." And I said, "No, well," and I was kind of shy about it because it still felt like it was too big of a word. I said, "I want to be a writer."
Mm,
He's like, "Really?" And from that point on, he let me work on a lot of his movies, like both in production assistant, throwing a joke in every once in a while. I just follow him around the country in my beat up pickup truck, sleeping in my
mm,
car, and moving around, learning.
mm, okay. And I mean, ultimately, you ended up on My Wife and Kids. So that kind of
I
is,
did, and that was him
yeah,
too. It was him too.
right.
Damon was very instrumental in why we're having this conversation today.
Nice. This is HBCU Con. So I have to ask you, what brought you to Howard?
Um, I knew a lot of people who were in the industry had gone to Howard,
Hmm.
um, and I wanted a little bit of that rub off on me. I knew that it was a connection, and in a couple of other things too. I was working at Georgetown Law, Georgetown Law Center. I was a campus cop there. Worst campus cop ever. If you ever want
Hmm.
to steal something, come on my shift because I would sleep somewhere in the corner. Uh, but by night, I would do that. By day, I'd go to school. And
Hmm.
it was close. It was in proximity. Like literally, it was a couple miles away. And I'd come to class in my uniform. Um, and but it also had it was like the perfect storm of people who were passionate and passionate about the thing that I was passionate about.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I needed that because I wanted to be an athlete. And I don't know why I got that in my mind. I guess because of size, because I've never in my life displayed any aptitude to play anything. But I
Big,
thought
big
maybe
relate. Yep.
try myself. Oh yeah, but I tried. I tried for
Hmm.
like 2 hours, and life said no, 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 son. This isn't. And so I always wanted to do this, but emotionally, psychologically, I just did not see a bridge between Annapolis, Maryland, where I'm from, and Hollywood. I just didn't see like people like me don't end up in Hollywood. I just didn't
Hmm.
see it. But
Hmm.
why not take a shot? I already know that if I don't do something, where I'll end up because I'm already living that life anyway. Why
Hmm.
not take a shot? And with each step, I still didn't necessarily believe it, but being in that environment of people who did believe it certainly helped me believe it more. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I mean, it's about the people they're in your circle. That's for sure.
Mhm.
I actually have some questions here that I want to maybe potentially
Oh,
throw
okay.
out to you. I got hey Mr. This is Fatala T says, hey Mr. Barnes, this is Vonell from Delta Dogs. Big respect to your work. What else do you think the industry is missing when it comes to storytelling? That's kind of a lofty question.
It is.
Hmm.
I think variety of story. If I'm talking about film, you know, if I'm talking about film, you don't get a lot of films about a lot of different subjects. Like when I grew up, there were films about everything, seemingly. I'm
Mm.
starting to sound like the old dude, like back in my day. But there used to be a lot
I
of
think that's
movies about
valid though.
but it's true.
Mm.
That's like I think there used to be films that you would see all the time. Like even if you're going through that period of Spike Lee, Robert Townsend movies,
Mhm.
there were a lot of those films that felt like not just experimental, but it was different voices. and there were
Right.
different
Yeah.
voices coming from different places and different entry points.
Mhm,
And not only did they entertain, but they inspired thought.
mhm,
And and I think for television, it's hard to say that in the same way, but I think the same thing is true in the
mhm,
sense that there are 500 channels. Yes, there's a lot of stuff on, but when it comes to the voices and things that go beyond just entertainment, even though it's a business, so I understand that it's not geared towards anything more than making money for the most part, and people
mhm,
don't like to think that, but that's what it is. But under that, it would be nice that if in the same vein we're talking about film, there was a little more purposeful stuff, and
mhm.
things that spoke. And maybe they're there and I just don't see them. So let me not say that because I don't spend a lot of time looking like I used to. But
Mhm.
I think that all of entertainment and all of these things can be used to make the world a better place or to make things more complicated.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, the complications have a lot to do with controlling how people see the world and themselves in the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I believe that, not to be a conspiracy theorist, that sometimes it's easier to sell cynicism than it is to
Yeah.
sell within that cynicism a sense of optimism and hope.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we have so many outlets for television and film now. But yeah, yeah, I really do believe that like the narratives have gotten kind of a little bit narrower over the last couple of years. Let's see here. I don't. This might go under the Wikipedia true or false. I've heard you have a
Oh,
wrestling background. Would you ever
oh
like to
boy.
revisit the world as a writer? Also, who's your favorite wrestler of all time? That's an interesting question.
All right. Number one, I did on the TV show Heels.
Okay.
I was for a very, very, very short period of time. I tried. That was during that period where I was trying to use my body as an instrument. After legitimate sport,
Mm.
not to say wrestlers, not legitimate. After things that had a ball, where involved a ball, I tried. I figured I'd do this.
Mhm.
That wrestling hurts. Wrestling hurts as much
Yes.
as football or anything else that I've ever done.
Hmm.
And I knew pretty much that first day that I'm not going to be doing this. I can't do this to myself. Um, Uh, my favorite wrestler, by far, Ric Flair. I mean, Ric Flair
Yeah.
has always been. I grew up a Ric Flair fan. I grew up again. It's kind of like comic books. Like I remember Ric Flair from Mid South all the way
Hmm.
through the WCW years and the Four
Hmm.
Horsemen to WWF/WWE.
Hmm.
To even to this day when he's trying his best to kill himself, but it doesn't seem to be working. Um,
uh,
it's just something about him and the charisma that
mhm.
grabbed me as a kid, never let go, and was like the perfect antagonist. Always the bad guy, Ric Flair. Bad guy,
Mhm.
Ric Flair was like funny. He was cool. He
Mhm.
was everything. And it's like, yeah, if you ask me for modern era, attitude era, Stone Cold and The Rock, same thing. The
Yeah.
Rock had a similar thing with the jokes and the put downs and the
Oh yeah.
shades and the leather
Mhm.
vest. And him and Stone Cold had that in common. That felt more like an era to me, like that
Mhm.
5-6 year run that they had in WWF.
Mhm.
But if you're asking me overall time, someone who, whenever they popped up, more often than not, thoroughly entertained me, it would be the Nature Boy Ric Flair, 16-time world
Absolutely.
heavyweight.
There you
Yeah.
go. I love that. Absolutely. All right. I have to ask you a question about Winning Time. I know you can't
Okay.
spoil anything, even though I think one of the amazing things about that show is that these are details from like about 40, 50 years ago, but you guys really pull the drama out of it and make it feel brand new. But I'm
Mhm.
not going to ask for any spoilers. But season two got a green light, right? Where are you in that process for season two?
Shot all the episodes,
Okay.
editing them now, and
Hmm.
hopefully this summer they will see the light of day.
All right. Cool. Cool. Will we get another cameo by you for the season?
Oh, I am not Maurice. Excuse me, Maurice, the head of Lakers security, is not a cameo. Maurice is a
Hmm.
very important fixture. People underestimate. I want Maurice to have a backstory, like he was a Navy SEAL and maybe exotic dancer or something before he became Laker security man. Yes,
Hmm.
I believe I'm in a few episodes, and
Okay.
so yeah, you'll see me performing once more in front of a camera. I don't know why. I always apologize to every actor I'm in there with. You deserve better than this, but yeah,
Right. Oh, we got Jenny here saying, Jenny from Jersey saying, can't wait to see Maurice. So there you
thank you,
go.
Maurice. I'm telling you, Maurice is really underappreciated. I think by the American viewing audience.
All right. Last question, because this is HBCU Con, right? Why do you feel it's important to support HBCUs?
Oh man, because this may sound sentimental, but it was always a safe place. You know, it's a safe
Mhm.
place where you can get the kind of support that's needed to kind of develop not only the mind but the spirit. You know, I
Mhm.
think education is a lot more dimensional than just information that you're taking in. It's also building the individual, and oftentimes when you're dealing with young people in your formative years, you need that bridge into adulthood. And I think HBCUs, certainly for people of color, give you
Mhm.
that. Many times I've had teachers treat me like, parents in the neighborhood, tell me to act right, not necessarily pull my pants up, but damn near, you can do better than this. But
Mhm.
there was a comfortability factor, a cultural comfortability, and that made me feel like I was home, and
Mhm.
talking to people that there was another degree of honesty, and it made me more self-aware, and it made me more vulnerable to the idea. And it also, let me say this, that not where I was going was it made this possible. It took
Mhm.
it from the idea of wanting to come there because other people had done it at that place to I can do this. I don't know if I got to will do this, but after the experience of being there, I got to a place of this is possible. And it was always steps of confidence, and Howard and my teachers and my classmates was certainly a part of that.
Well, you certainly did do it, man. And I want to thank you again for joining us. I appreciate you doing this interview. I'm going to remind people real quick, Blacula, already out in comic shops, in bookstores, online. Uh, Monarch coming this February. So it's going to be released later this month. And this isn't really a scoop, but Winning Time is going to be dropping this summer, guys. So definitely keep an eye on that. On top of that, he's already doing Mandalorian. And of course, there's a bunch of Philadelphia and Anita Hawes for you people to catch up on. So definitely check that out as well. I highly recommend Philadelphia and Anita Hawes. As a matter of fact, I know we had a mutual friend, Maya Crown. She used to bug me. She passed away recently. She
Oh
used
my
to bug
God.
me all the time about,
Yes.
can you get me this Philadelphia cover? Can you get me this Philadelphia cover? So absolutely, yes, definitely check it out. Do yourself a favor and read
I
some.
miss Crown. I miss Crown.
Oh yeah,
He was a
absolutely for
character.
sure. She was
Yeah.
definitely a character.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you again, Rodney. I appreciate you spending the time with us. And everybody, be sure to stay tuned to HBCU Con for future updates on when the next convention will be. I'm Troy Jeffrey Allen. This is Rodney Barnes, and we'll catch you guys later.